talking heads. Now, you might have seen in the national news today about Rooney. Rooney's on the cover of some of the papers today because of his hair transplant. 32 grand reportedly on a hair transplant, and he's not the first celeb to raise his follicles in our direction. Bono, John Travolta, Jude Law, Mel Gibson. God, the list goes on. Kevin Costner, Elton, of course. James Nesbitt, which is ridiculous because he was so handsome, bold. Gordon Ramsay, goodness sakes, loads of them reportedly had hair transplants over the years. And Rooney, as I say in the news today, on Twitter, he said, "I have had a hair transplant. I was going bald at 25. Why not? I'm delighted with the result." And that's quoted from Twitter. But why do some men have a problem with losing their hair? Girls, I'd like your take on this. I think most of you will be with me. I mean, God, if you take... Here we go. Let's compare Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen or Ross Kemp. I mean, please. Seriously, would you not like Ross Kemp because he hasn't got any hair? Well, let's speak to an expert. Dr. Bessam Farjo is going to join us now. He's been carrying out hair transplants for almost 20 years, and his clients have included Duncan Ballantyne and the actor Sean Williamson, who played Barry from EastEnders. Yes, of course, I forgot he had one as well, didn't he? Well, Dr. Bessam joins us now here on BBC WM. A very warm welcome, Dr. Bessam. Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, no, thank you for your time in joining us, because we're desperate for someone to explain why, and you being a man as well, why, I guess, celebrities and rich men, people who can afford this, feel they need to have hair transplants. Do you obviously do quite a good trade in this type of cosmetic surgery? It's quite popular, I presume.
Well, this is what I do exclusively, really, almost for the last 20 years, hair transplant surgery. I think for men, it's not just about looks. There's something psychological when a man loses his hair. And it's not about, what others think of them. It's feeling better about themselves. It gives them better self-confidence and all that.
But it is it's their perception of how other people will perceive them. And I wish you men would realise us girls generally really find it sexy.
Well, the problem is that that view is not supported, especially in the media, for example. You mentioned a few bald men, that is true. But you mentioned Ross Kemp. I think it's hard to compare celebrities. For example, if Ross Kemp was the local builder in your street and not a celebrity, you might not give him a second look. People very often mention people like Sean Connery. But again, you're picking on famous people. And if you look in the major roles given in television and cinemas, they're very rarely given to bald guys. I mean, take politics, for example. The last British bald prime minister was Churchill, and the last bald American president was Eisenhower. So that, again, shows you that...
Never thought of that, yeah.
Yeah, so it shows you that image. It does have a role to play, and a man with a good head of hair certainly on first instinct seem to have the more acceptable image.
Well, let's just carry on the psychological impact just for a minute before we get into the procedure. I understand you started losing your hair at a young age. Did it affect you personally and mentally quite a lot?
I think it did affect me. Perhaps not. I wasn't devastated about it. Again, I think I was a bit more confident. I was reasonably self-confident, but I lost probably all my hair at the top and the front and the crown when I was as young as 27. And I was left with very little hair at the sides and the back to do anything significant with. So I think it had helped me in my profession to appreciate what people are going through and give them advice based on what would happen if they did lose a lot of hair.
Did you have a hair transplant?
I did when before I started doing the transplants myself at the very beginning when I was training. I did have a little bit of transplant, but as I said, what I did have was very small and very limited, but I still think it's a lot better than nothing at all.
The majority of men that come to you for these transplants, are these bald spots at the back or sort of receding at the front, or a mixture of both? Which seems to affect men more?
I think it's a mixture of both, really. You get different people. Sometimes you get very young guys who just started to lose hair, and I generally caution them against surgery when they come like that, because because they're likely to lose a lot more hair as they get older, and it's very difficult to start at that young age with very early hair loss, because it ends up being patchy, and you end up really gambling with your hair, not knowing where it's all going to end up or whether you'll have enough hair to sort it out. To sort out as much hair as you're going to lose. So I tend to try and concentrate on maintaining what they've got, try and stop future hair loss with medications and things like that. And then we also, at the other end of the scale, we get people in their 40s, 50s and 60s even who've lost all the hair they're going to lose, stabilised, and they just want to turn over a new image.
Right, can I ask some basic questions? And please don't think me daft. I know absolutely nothing about hair transplants. Right, now, let's start with basics. Where's the hair from?
Well, male pattern hair loss, genetic hair loss, is about you maintain hair at the very back of the scalp and the sides of the scalp, and you generally lose it from the top. So in a transplant surgery, the usual thing is that the hair comes from the back or the sides of the head.
Oh, it's your own hair. It's your own hair.
Absolutely, your own hair, which is why it grows, and it's done correctly and artistically. It should look very good.
Do you do women as well, quickly, let me ask you? Do you do women hair transplants?
Yes, we do, but obviously in a smaller percentage than men, because less women lose their hair. But we do a significant amount. I'd say about 5% of the operations I do are on women, and maybe as much as 15% of consultations are on women. Women, fortunately, do not lose as much hair as men, and therefore they don't need to have as much work as men.
So, talk me through the procedure. You're taking living hair, and cause if you lose your hair, doesn't that mean that your follicle's dead? You're putting living hair into a follicle.
Well, it's an ongoing debate that what happens to the hair. Are they completely lost or are they dormant? But what we're doing, it's a surgical procedure, and what you do, I can only relate it to gardening. You basically have to remove roots of hair in their bed of skin, and remove them while they're in the bed of skin, and simply relocate that as a graft into another area. You plant in another area. And the reason why it works, because the hair at the back and the sides is genetically programmed not to fall out, no matter where you place it on the body. So if you take it into an area that went bald, it'll continue to grow as in where it came from, rather than where it's going to.
Does it still go grey?
If where I took it from was grey, then it'll go grey, or vice versa. It'll simply retain the characteristics of where I took it from.
I can't believe technology allows us to do this. Your microscopes must be so powerful to take the root of a hair and transplant it into amazing. Now, is this procedure a fortune? What we're talking about? I know that the 32 grand's been bandied around in the national news today for Rooney, but for one of us normal people, should they come to you for a consultation, I mean, are you talking 32 grand?
I think every time you see a celebrity story in the paper, there's always fantastic amounts of money. And I don't know, obviously, I didn't do Wayne Rooney's operation, but no, that's not the kind of money hair transplant surgery costs. The cost is very much dependent on the amount of hair that's being transferred, because the more hair you deal with, the longer it takes. But generally speaking, in the largest kind of operation that I would do on the one person, it involves around 9 to 10,000 hairs transferred in the one operation, and that could cost somewhere between £10,000 and £11,000. And
that procedure will hopefully last for life.
Well, it's 10,000 hairs. It will last for life.
It will, yeah.
But the patient, if they're very bald, they may actually need a second or a third operation because they have maybe a large enough bald area, or they lose more hair in the future and the bald area gets bigger, and then they may need a follow-up.
Just as a final question, are you finding not just celebs, because I know you've done some high-profile clients, but not just celebs, are you finding a lot more men are coming to you? Is this subject maybe not as taboo as it was, when Elton John, reportedly had his, back in the 80s, a bit of a laughing stock, it was a taboo subject. I guess the technology might have been a bit new there, but these days, in 2011, is it a lot more... Well, people are a lot more open about the fact they've had it done, as Rooney has been, and openly talked about it on Twitter.
I think absolutely it's not taboo anymore, but I suppose it's similar to all kind of lifestyle type procedures, other cosmetic procedures as well. But certainly we've lost that stereotype image of a transplant, like you mentioned, Elton John, and I can even remember Ross Abbott. The techniques were so old. I mean,
I forgot about him. Bless him.
Yeah, forgot about it. Is so different. Like really, we should be calling it by a different name. It's like it's completely different. In them days, it was very clumpy, unnatural looking, but like you might expect. Over time, everything improves, and we've reached a very sophisticated level. And you mentioned microscopes. Or the entire procedure is actually done under microscopes, where 9 to 10 people working on the same person.
Wow, really? Gosh, that's amazing. Well, listen, for anyone listening to this, Dr. Bessam Farjo, who's thinking, well, there you go. How do people get in touch with you then if they want to come in for preliminary consultations or just to find out more about it? Where exactly are you?
Well, the most straightforward way is to go on our website, and that's www.farjo.com, and they'll be able to contact us by email. But the website has got loads of information and pictures and videos, and it's got plenty to educate people. And if they feel compelled to do this, then they can get in touch.
Farjo, Farjo. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. It's absolutely fascinating to hear exactly what it entails. And thank you for your time in explaining it.
Thank you.
All right, enjoy the rest of your Monday. Dr. Bessam Farjo, thanks for your time. BBC WM.